Hi everyone, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room, guys. I hope you're well today. We are going to be discussing a topic that, strangely enough, I don't find discussed very often in the literature of personality. And that is the difference between the INFJs NI and the INTJs NI. Behind this argument, there is the, if you like, implicit argument that a function is qualitatively different depending on the type and the cognitive function stack in which it is embodied. So you could have the same function on paper, NI, being different in an ISFP from in an INFJ from an INTJ. Even when NI is in a dominant position for both INFJs and INTJs, there's still quite a number of important distinctions to draw between the INFJs NI and the INTJs NI. Now, before I continue with this analysis, just to remind you that I've written a book on the INFJ personality, The Ecstatic Soul, the deepest investigation of the INFJ ever conducted. Less than $10, all the links are available in the description box for Amazon to all the countries. If you have any questions, drop a comment and I'll help you out. So, what is the difference between the INFJs NI and the INTJs NI? Before we dig into this difference, let's take a moment to remember that a cognitive function does not really ever exist on its own. It always exists as being embodied and expressed in the cognitive makeup of a particular person. And that's what distinguishes this person or that person as being of this or that type. Therefore, NI in isolation doesn't really exist. There's no way of really talking about NI in isolation. Of course, we can try to do that by abstracting from all the different instances of NI to get to a sort of generalized description, but it's always going to be an artifice at some level. And for this very reason, in the case of the INFJ, NI is going to be impacted by the FE, TI, SE, lower side of the function stack, just as in the case of the INTJ, NI is going to be impacted by the TFI, SE side of the function stack. So here, in this case, SE is constant. We can leave it aside for the time being and focus on the impact of FETI for the INFJ and FITE for the INTJ. Essentially, this is something that I also described in my book. The NI of the INFJ is essentially vocational in nature. That would also be true of the INTJ. Therefore, both types relate to their knowledge of things in a prescient mode. They know and get to conclusions prior to being able to elaborate on what those conclusions are. Now, the INFJ then figures out what those conclusions are and gets to a level where they can justify those conclusions by working on FE and TI to engage other people to carve out the meaning of their NI intuitions and validate them and redeem them in the process. The INTJ is much more independent in that sense because they rely on an FI function of internal deliberation, which means that the NI insights are assigned to values that they do not need to discuss with other people in the first place, and they justify the meaning of their NI insights by engaging the world directly through extroverted thinking. And so the result is that the NI of the INFJ, when the INFJ is healthy, vocational, the NI of the INFJ is always projected toward other people. In some sense, you could say that the NI of the INFJ is a kind of social NI. And I know it sounds like a bit of a paradox because, like I've said in the previous video, like NI is a very idiosyncratic, peculiar, quirky kind of function in many ways. But ultimately, if the INFJ is to be an existentially satisfied person, they have no choice but to engage other people about the contents of their NI. If they opt for this approach rather than for their own healthier approaches of evasiveness and dismissiveness, as I have also discussed in my book. So an INFJ's job, you could say, an INFJ's whole reason to be is to engage other people with NI at the back of their mind at all moments, and to get the chance, when they seize the opportunity, to discuss those insights. It's not going to be about anything that's like, you know, super symbolic or super esoteric. I mean, symbolic and esoteric material can, of course, be discussed by INFJs, just like they can be discussed by any other type who has an interest in those topics. But the conversations are going to be led by the particular topic that's discussed, and so by the interests of the conversationalist in that particular topic. So NI is not particularly drawn to the esoteric or the symbolic or the implicit or the mysterious. What will distinguish it is, again, this idea that the INFJ just knows things, gets this sense that he relates to his knowledge of things in the mode of prescience, or not being able to explain why he knows these things. That makes him existentially anxious to some extent because he feels disconnected from the world. By engaging other people and by engaging the rational functions via FETI, the INFJ is able to rebuild the chronological process whereby the gathering of some SI informational pieces of factual content led to the pattern recognition of NI. And so they're able to reconstruct the process by which they get to those conclusions, which in the first place are felt perceptually and existentially to be immediate and without cause. And that is very much what the INFJ does. And that also means that the INFJ is in some sense remarkably transparent when it comes to the contents of their NI. And people don't necessarily realize that. People think that INFJs are mysterious due to NI, that they are seers who are able to see into the future due to NI. That is in some way a misunderstanding of what the INFJ personality is. The INFJ is always, again in a healthy mode, always reaching out to other people for them to have a look at the contents of their NI and share criticism, share an opinion, share some validation that's also in keeping with the FE function. INFJ is always doing this, but people don't necessarily see it because they think that NI has particular determinate contents that are supposed to be symbolic, mysterious, cryptic, instead of just being contents that just have this form of just knowing, of seemingly coming out of nowhere, and the other person has the task of working with the INFJ to reconstruct the way that led to that conclusion. So the INFJ is very transparent, and for this reason they're wonderful articulators of what NI is. They're wonderful promoters for descriptions of the NI function, and the best example being, of course, Carl Jung himself and his book Psychological Types and other books. It's no surprise. I think that the NI of the INFJ is misconstrued because most of the time when we read about NI in common literature, it seems to be taking its inspiration from the INTJs NI, not the INFJs NI, because the INTJs NI, for functional reasons, for reasons of cognitive makeup peculiar to the INTJ, is much more resistant to scrutiny, much less open, doesn't necessarily like to be exposed in public and to be the source of a social discussion. If you have ever tried to connect with an INTJ, you might have noticed that it's not necessarily the uniqueness of their NI insights that they're interested to discuss, and if you try to praise that in them, then it won't necessarily be particularly grateful or impressed. Sometimes they feel like you're crossing a boundary. They'll feel a little bit embarrassed and like they don't want to be invaded like that in their inner sanctum, because for them the matter of clarifying the process from the gathering of the SE fact to the NI conclusion, to the way of recovering the world through connecting SE and NI, is something that they can more or less do themselves. First, by referring to their FI values, which are authentically theirs. They don't need other people to tell them what their values are or confirm that those values are the right values. So you can refer to Nietzsche, for example, INTJ, who always dreamt of men who are able to, hold their own values without needing that to justify those values to anybody else or to any external system of thought. And also, when it comes to the justification of TE, well, that's something that the INTJ does in conjunction with the world itself. It's by manipulating the world that they eventually redeem the trajectory that their NI insights has followed in order to be finally confirmed or rejected as implausible. And of course, that can involve other people, because when you have an encounter with the world that is meant to vindicate your NI insights, you're engaging in a concrete material project to vindicate your NI insights. And if the project is ambitious, if the NI insights are themselves about ambitious things, you better have a team with you to help you realize the projects. And that's how you get a lot of INTJ entrepreneurs, for example, a lot of INTJ entrepreneurs who push a project forward, and without necessarily always realizing it, they're redeeming the validity of their NI insights in the process. They're not doing this in conversation with other people. They'll discuss with people if the conversation is about ways of ensuring that the order of the world is made to correspond with their NI insights. If there is this practical dimension, they're not necessarily interested in discussing their NI for the sake of the discussion, whereas for the INFJ, it is absolutely fundamental. And because the INTJ has this more protective relationship to their NI insights, they come across more mysterious than do, in fact, INFJs. Let me know what you think, guys. Drop a comment, consider subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.